Episode 1 of Daredevil Born Again dropped in. It changed me. There are going to be spoilers coming inbound. But before we get to the episode, because I'll still give people more time to get away if they haven't seen it yet, I've been a fan of this dude since 1995 for the Spider-Man the Animated Series when that came out, and I saw him on there. I picked up his comic book in high school, and I've been a fan ever since. His movie came out in 2003, and for 12 years, I had to sit through the ridicule because Reindeer Gaines played Matt Murdock, but it was a B movie. I'll die on that hill, and for 12 years, had to have ridiculed that this was my favorite character. But then, 2015, Daredevil dropped on Netflix, changed the game. Everybody shut the fuck up. And then, after 3 seasons of bangers, 3 seasons of the best hands in the Marvel Universe, it gets pulled off Netflix. And we're wondering if it's going to get taken to MCU. Then we hear, Daredevil Born Again is coming. We waited, 7 years? 7 years for this guy to come into the MCU proper, but also 7 years worrying that it won't be the same, that they might compromise a bunch of things. Hey, they didn't compromise a damn thing. Especially the violence. The good thing about a comic book adaptation to film and TV is you know the source material, right? It can be hit or miss when you're adapting that material, but the harder thing is to be able to not only adapt it, but still be able to make a new storyline as well as twists and turns and risks that the audience that's familiar with the source material won't see coming. That's what this show does. Because we got to see the gang back together again. Foggy, Karen, Matt Murdock, and then we also see Kirsten McDuffie, who's from the Mark Waid and Chris Samney run of Daredevil from the Marvel Comics. I saw Kirsten and I was like, oh, we're starting this off early. Alright, cool. And they also threw in Cherry, who was a character I believe to be unique to this universe. And it was all joy and good times until Foggy got that call. And then we heard the shot. No Rage Against the Machine. I'm talking Bullseye. That man put a hot one in Foggy Nelson, then rolled up on Karen like, hey, 18 you since season 3, what's up? And once Daredevil and Bullseye got back to scrapping, I said, oh, we back. We're so back. And now Foggy got hit with the bullet, but he's been shot and stabbed before in the comics. That's what comes with the territory when you're Matt Murdock's boy. But as we see Matt continually fighting Bullseye, we hear Foggy's heartbeat getting fainter and fainter, and so does Matt. And we don't talk enough about how Matt's heightened senses give him an advantage in a fight, but also give him a disadvantage in a fight. I think people forget that Matt Murdock's sense of touch is crazy right now. He can read a newspaper based upon the way the ink is imprinted on the page. However, that means the inverse is true whenever he takes damage in a fight or gets hurt. So imagine your sense of touch being heightened and you just got stabbed with all these different inanimate objects from Bullseye. All the while hearing your boy leaking out on the concrete and his heartbeat getting slower and slower. And what's wild is Matt is still fighting and he can hear Foggy dying and realizes that Foggy is dead right as he took down Bullseye, which is wild work, and I did not see that coming at all. When Foggy wasn't breathing anymore, I said, oh, we're doing this for real. And then we see Bullseye just laughing about it and Matt struggling to keep his composure, but he cannot. And this scene is reminiscent of season 3 of Daredevil when he had Wilson Fisk in his hands and was right about to break his neck and had to stop himself from doing it. He got in Fisk's face and told him, yo, I beat you. I beat you. He didn't give in to his urges and kill Fisk. Instead, he found another way. But that's different. Bullseye just killed his man, his boy, the man he went to college with, the man he started a business with, a man he was going to help defend the little guy as lawyers with. What did Frank Castle tell him in season 2? You're one bad day away from being me. I didn't know that day was going to be today because he mushed that man off the building and let him fall to the ground. Again, I've been a fan of this man since 1995. I started following his career in comic books back in 2000s when I was in high school. I feel it's safe to say that I know the character pretty well. I don't know shit. Because seeing him toss Bullseye off the roof, I didn't even have any words. It was just... And this was a brilliant choice because it grounds Daredevil in reality, while also paying homage to the comics because we see 2 things happening here. The first being that this is a callback to the Guardian Devil storyline by Kevin Smith, drawn by Joe Quesada and Jim Palmiotti. In that storyline, Karen Page is killed by Bullseye. And we would have seen that back in season 3 of Daredevil because it takes place in the church, but that didn't happen then. She got out. However, we see it happen here with Foggy Nelson. I think that's a brilliant switch because, again, we see no one is safe. Because if they kill Ben Urich, who is a mainstay in the Marvel Universe, anybody can get it. So in the MCU, Foggy gets it. The second thing happening here is a reference to the Frank Miller run of Daredevil from the 80s. There's a similar scene from the rooftop that occurs in the comic books after Bullseye kills Elektra. Daredevil and Bullseye are fighting throughout New York City. They're fighting on train tracks, and there's a point where they both fall off the tracks and grab onto a power line. The way I remembered it was that Daredevil fell onto the power line and grabbed Bullseye to prevent him from dying. That's not what happened. They both jumped onto the power line. Daredevil jumped to disrupt Bullseye's balance. This caused Bullseye to lose his balance and he fell. Daredevil catches him by the wrist. Bullseye's telling him, "Nah, I'm not gonna have you save me again," and he's about to stab Daredevil with Elektra's Psy, but Daredevil tells him, "You're not gonna kill anyone. You're not gonna kill anyone ever again." And he lets go. And this fall doesn't kill Bullseye, but it paralyzes him. And you could say it's a gray area here because if he held on to Bullseye, he was going to get stabbed. But we know after what just occurred with him killing Elektra, his college girlfriend, the love of his life, he wanted that man to die. And this isn't the first time either. I should also mention that after Bullseye's paralyzed, he gets visited by Daredevil in the hospital who brought a present for him. A gun, a .38 revolver. And they play a game of Russian roulette, one where Bullseye is helpless, but I'll get more into that later. I'm definitely going to do a breakdown of the history of Bullseye as Daredevil's nemesis and their rivalry together. And again, the choice to kill Foggy Nelson instead of Karen Page is pretty brilliant because all the time we see the love interest die. Matt has more history with Foggy Nelson, so by having Foggy Nelson and Karen Page trade places in death, that gives us a whole new point of view for Daredevil in the MCU. So while this might not be the Daredevil of old, this is a great direction to be taking the character in because we're still seeing him develop. And it's also kind of hilarious because Matt Murdock has spent so much time out of the costume. This man stay hanging up the jersey. But it's always interesting to see the thing and the violence that pulls him back in. I already got to see the entire season from screeners and man, I'm telling you, we back.